Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast. As always, it's me, Aviv Ben-Yosef here, and today we'll be talking about friends, not as seen on TV. Before we get to that, as I hinted last week, I'll be holding my yearly end of year / yearly kickoff free webinar, and I'd love to see you all there. It's going to happen in less than a month. Check out the link in the show notes to sign up. Again, it's free. You should be there. We already have people from like 6 countries. A couple dozen people, I think, signed up already, which is awesome. And only now this is getting on my social media and the podcast. So I think it's going to be very fun. It's called the 2024 Launchpad, and we'll be talking about how to master velocity, your team's progress velocity and how you change, and of course, your team's delivery in general. So that's the most important thing you need to check out this week. It's in the show notes. I'm counting on you to sign up. And before we get to talking about friends, also a quick update about what's happening here, because this is my outlet. We're now over 50 days of war here. There is a tiny, tiny bit of happiness going on because we have the ceasefire deal in which we already, as I'm recording this, have received, I think, about 40 people, out of them about 20-something Israeli citizens back, which is amazing. And even though some of them seem to be injured and not in great shape, they're all generally okay, which is good. And I'm hoping to see more. I will say that calling this a prisoner swap or a hostage swap is abhorrent, in my opinion, because we're getting back elderly women, innocent kids, and what Israel is releasing, not hostages. Okay, Israel doesn't have hostages. The minors that were released, for example, are prisoners who actually, there are videos of them, you can check it online. There are videos of them stabbing Jews. There are videos of them armed. They are convicted terrorists. Okay? Israel does not take hostages. Israel has prisoners convicted because, again, they are criminals, terrorists. And these are the sorts of people we had to let go now. And as has happened in the past, I won't be surprised to see that they turn again to terror, which has happened countless times. By the way, Sinwar, who runs Hamas in Gaza, was released in the previous deal we had to release a soldier about 10 years ago. So that's what we get. But that's it. Now let's talk about friends. There's also a little head nod here to Matthew Perry, which I'm very sad to hear about his death because I'm a big Friends fan. But I want to talk about how friendships are actually the worst thing we can have in teams. And, I'm not a robot. Some of my best friends are people I met at work. However, if there's something that I see time and time again is that when we aim to treat our teams as if they were families and no one can leave, or some of the longest, most affecting issues I've seen where when an executive or a leader failed to handle someone who was underperforming, who wasn't a good fit for their role for way too long because they were friends. Maybe they were friends before that person was hard. Maybe they became real friends during the work together. However, once people become not just colleagues or people you have a good time with, but actual friends, it can become a lot harder to manage them, to provide them with honest feedback, to help them grow, to realize that they're not working out for the company. And again, I'm not a robot, but I do believe that teams operate the best when we are able to put egos aside and put emotions aside and just talk about what actually matters. And this is almost impossible to do when we are surrounded by friends and when you're constantly thinking about getting your employees' affection and approval, because that's not what you should be aiming for. You need to be getting respect in order for them to follow you and be honest with you. But if you create this sort of friendship, it's almost impossible to do what's best for the entire team. And this is, by the way, why I always say that if you're promoting someone to be a manager for the first time, it is a lot harder to promote someone within a team to manage the team, because not only do they need to learn how to become managers, they also have to somehow get past this hurdle of becoming a manager for people who were their peers a minute ago. And this is, in many cases, almost impossible. You get to those weird sort of mongrel situations where people don't really get the feedback they need, where the managers don't push the teams as much as necessary, become too adamant on protecting the team from what they view as a hard time, as opposed to helping the team grow to where it needs to grow. And this is really something I've seen countless times. And I've seen it happen also to CEOs, to CTOs. It's not limited to team leads. And we are all human. But if there's something that you need to do right now as you're thinking about this is, first of all, I implore you to basically never hire friends. If you do hire friends, it has to be in a situation, in a position where you are not going to be the one who'll have to provide them with bad feedback, who'll have to let them go, for example, if things don't work out, because that's likely to be a lot harder for you. And also, try and always look at your organizations in a way that if you're promoting someone, promote them even from within the company, not hiring externally. Try and make them managers of a different team. This is good actually just for the robustness of your team in general, because it means that people will be more well-rounded. They will know more things. They're not limited to their team for too long. But also, it does mean it's going to be a lot easier for them to manage the people they work with, to manage their employees, provide them with feedback. And it also boils down to the sorts of activities, values, you try and create as part of your culture. If you're thinking about 2024 and you're thinking about how to take your team to the next stage, keep in mind that creating this sort of family is usually not how you create the best teams in the world. And I'm sure that some of you are listening and thinking, no, I have my best friend on the team or whatever. I have seen those work out from time to time. And I've worked with close friends. Sometimes it was amazing. Sometimes it was actually pretty bad because someone couldn't get the feedback they needed, or people ended up getting hurt needlessly because they took things a lot more personally when the news came from someone who's close to them. So while it might work out in rare cases, I would say that you are basically making things harder. Yes, you're maybe bringing on someone who you know and trust, but you're also putting in place all sorts of constraints that will make changing the team harder with time. It's already pretty hard to move people from their current roles and reorgs, etc. Adding to it the weight of having to manage people who are close to you, who you see socially outside of work, etc., is just making things in order of magnitude a lot harder. And I would recommend finding different places to get your friends at. And while this is, again, maybe an unpopular opinion, I do believe that this is what's needed in order to set yourself and set your team up to have amazing productivity, a career highlight that will genuinely deliver things amazing. So think about that. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. Again, check out the show notes for my regular content, the newsletter and everything, and specifically the 2024 Launchpad. I'll be here next week.